Well, President Trump paying tribute to the American men and women who served in Pearl Harbor today on the 76th anniversary of that attack that drew the United States into World War II. As survivors of the battle looked on, President Trump signed a proclamation declaring December 7th National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. One of the vets then honored the commander-in-chief with a song.
Remember Pearl Harbor. Have you heard that before a couple of times? Remember Pearl Harbor.
Remember Pearl Harbor as we go to meet the foe. Just remember Pearl Harbor as we dig the Alamo. We shall always remember how they died for liberty. Just remember Pearl Harbor and go on to victory.
Yes. Joining us now, retired four-star general, Fox News military analyst Jack Keane. Pretty good singer.
Yeah, that's quite a moment.
That's wonderful. And let's turn to what we're facing here. Pearl Harbor, we're sitting here on Remembrance Day, and so little discussion of it. As time sort of makes these events fade a bit in the minds of particularly the young. What are your thoughts on these days in which we remember extraordinary moments in this country's history, like Pearl Harbor Day?
Well, I think the most significant event in the history of mankind was World War II.
Right.
You know, when you consider the war in the Atlantic and the war in the Pacific, there's close to 100 million people killed. It's an unbelievable, catastrophic event. All of those are civilians. And wars started by brutal dictators. And the United States was the key indispensable nation in the Atlantic and the Pacific to turn all of that around. And it's the generosity of the American people and our values that did all of that. It's a remarkable story.
It is indeed, and a remarkable history for a remarkable country, if I may say. Let's turn to the period in which we're living under considerable threat, whether it be from Iran, or whether it be from, people don't like to recognize it that way, but it is certainly that, with Russia, with China, and North Korea. Rex Tillerson today saying that with Russia improving relations, we can get over just about everything, accommodate about everything, but not Ukraine. I was sort of surprised to hear him say that. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, he's right about the seriousness of the Ukraine situation, because it is a bona fide invasion, and they're trampling over the rights of the Ukrainian people, to be sure. And to date, Obama did nothing to assist them, did nothing to really push back on it. So I'm hoping this administration puts their shoulder into this and does something about it. However, the situation in Syria is a human catastrophe of great proportions, the greatest one, by the way, since World War II, being we're talking about it today. And Obama did nothing to deal with that.
That's part of what I was surprised about, is suggesting that we can deal with Syria, we can deal with Crimea, we can accept that as it's a fait accompli anyway. So much, and by the way, their relationship with North Korea, but to focus on Ukraine, not to diminish what Ukraine is, but these other issues are large and difficult.
Yeah, Russia has made some serious geopolitical decisions to take advantage of the vacuum, I think, that President Obama provided to them when they disengaged. And their interventionism is very serious. In the Middle East, they're trying to replace the United States as the most influential nation that's outside the region. And they're stepping all over our allies in doing that. They're married up with the Iranians, and they clearly have designs on starting to control and influence countries in the regions. They're eventually going to want to have bases. And we cannot walk away from what the Russians have done in Ukraine. So, yeah, I'm surprised by it. I'm encouraged by the fact that he believes Ukraine is a big deal, because it truly is, because it is an invasion. But you can't walk away from what the Russians are definitely doing in the Middle East.
Well, the president exerting, with I think a very brave and historic decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Protests today, as one would expect, by the Arab street, but a profound moment, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, 1995, the Congress enacted a piece of legislation that identified Jerusalem as the as the capital of Israel, and that the United States should recognize it. Every president kicked the can down the road thinking that by not announcing that, somehow that would accelerate the peace process. So here we are 22 years later, and what do we have to show for it, Lou? We have absolutely nothing to show for it. So I think President Trump, I'm not inside his head, but he looks at that and he says, look, we've made no progress. Why don't we stop the phony pretense and let's announce this thing for what it truly is and see if it can possibly even be a catalyst as opposed to what it has been.
Let's turn very quickly. We've got about 30 seconds here. The Europeans, there was a lot of criticism of the president for doing that. The United Nations having a little bit of a fit. It really tells us something about the nations, the international community on the issue of Israel.
Well, there's been an anti-Israel undercurrent running through Europe, not just in the Middle East, certainly. But one of the things I'm encouraged about, Israel has the best relations with the Sunni Arabs they've ever had. And the reason for that is Iran.
General Jack Keane, we'll conclude with that optimistic outlook,
Okay.
which I share.